Signal seekers, this is your wake-up call. You've been hearing it in the noise, seeing it in the static. Are you receiving the frequency? Strange lights, lost places, forgotten stories. The signal has always been there. If you can hear this transmission, you're already part of the signal. Welcome to Backwoods Signal, broadcasting from the edge of reality.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Backwoods Signal. Tonight, I am really excited about tonight's show. It is the last show that I'm doing, at least for a while. But tonight, I have on a very special guest, Ash's Antics from the Boom Boom Room. And I've already told them how much I love this name. I walk around sometimes going, the Boom Boom Room. When I'm having a bad day, I just say that name and it's just like, that sounds so cool. So Ashes, first of all, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Daniel, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to come on, my friend.
You know what? Thank you for coming in, because you know it's a rare treat to get to see some of you guys. Because I see the shows and so forth, but talking to you guys face to face, I don't see a lot of my peers very often. So Ashes, let's talk about you for a minute though here. So first of all, let me ask you, what got you started with podcasting?
Well, first of all, apologize for the gum. I'm 2 weeks from vaping. I quit vaping, so I've got nicotine gum when I get the urge. But I've got a gaming channel. I've had it for about 4 years, and it's a funny story, really. I think I've had the podcast about a year and a half, something like that, maybe a little under. And I game with some friends from New Zealand, Sweden, and Australia. Well, we always would turn our cams on Discord, and, we're on different times in the world, and we would just look at each other and laugh, and joke, talk about things. I said, guys, why don't we start a podcast and we can just get on there. We're all from different parts of the world and just talk about whatever. So, yeah, let's do it, and I was going to have them on periodically. So I started. When I started, it was either my first or second episode. Me and my friend from Australia, his name's Grablow, his name. So we get on there and we just do like he wants to do a reaction video. We do a reaction video. I can give you the shorter version, the medium or longer version if you want me to of this. But anyway, then I had my buddy, then I said, he got busy. So I'm just going to interview friends, different content creators. So I started having on my gamer friends. Had my gamer friends on. Other guys were just busy with life. Then I have a guy that I'm a big fan of, the hair metal guru. He comes on. We're talking about hair metal. He's blowed up now. He's got over 22,000. He's a couple weeks ago, he was in the I think it was the Whiskey in LA. He was doing live shows. He was at he went to a concert with the drummer from Poison. He's at the Rat's drummer's house in the pool, driving around. He's blowed up. He's a friend I talked to, but he's real busy. Well, my buddy Ted from California, my co-host of Whispers Across America, I said, Ted, I got thinking about all the stuff that I've been through since I've been a kid, supernatural, and what happened to me in 2011, which I think was a Sasquatch encounter. I said, I got an idea. I said, I enjoy, interviewing everybody that's content creators. And most of them were gamers, good friends. We talk about whatever. I said, you know, I want to do some folklore. I didn't know much about folklore at all. I said, I want to do all 50 states. He's like, what? Let's do all 50 states. You be my co host. So I started alphabetical order. And, I think it was Alabama, I think was the first. And then, went all the way down the line. I done all 50 states. And then I done like a Christmas special, Thanksgiving, and a Halloween. Well, during that, I said, I do not know the first person I had on that's had an encounter, but I started having people, and it just kind of was the domino effect. And I've done experimented on there before I got my niche, or kind of got my flow. Little things I've done, and I've done some creepy pasta, which I enjoy doing those, and I've got some good views off of them. But I mainly enjoy talking about the folklore, and then talking about having people on talking about their encounters. And then I've met so many people, that's become friends like you yourself. A lot of people in the cryptid community that's become friends, and um, but during this time, I think I started watching Sasquatch Chronicles was probably the first show, and then I started watching Daniel Hamilton's show, your show, Mysteries Unknown, Josh's show. Then just started, meeting everybody. Hey, Chronic, that's my a gamer buddy there, but he's from New Zealand. But that's kind of how it started. Just started interviewing people, and just kind of got that flow. Heavy metal and cryptids go well together. And then I had Nick Johnson. He's award-winning YouTuber. He's visited most states on YouTube. He has two channels. One he just started. It's got 20 some thousand. His main channel's got over 1 million subscribers, and he commented on one of my gaming videos about a couple years ago. So I sent him a message about 6 months ago, and he said, "Yeah, when I'm not," I said, "You want to be on my podcast if you had any supernatural stuff happen?" He said, "I've had some supernatural stuff," and he's had some weird stuff. I never did dream the stuff he went through. Shapeshifter he seen in a bar, but he said, "Yeah, when I'm not busy, because he travels all over. He go, and then he started going to overseas, Japan, China. But he came on the show, and super nice guy, and I was blessed to have him on. But he's just like anybody else. I was just amazed though somebody with that many subscribers would want to come on the show. But he told me, he said, "You always supported me through the years." I guess he would, even though that many subscribers and the views he got, he would read the comments. So I respect a guy like that, take his time, it's got over 1 million subscribers to read the comments. But that's about the history of it. I mean, pretty well, it started at one thing and then it ended up another. And I can't believe that this quick that I've got that many subscribers. I don't know. Last time I checked, I always look at it 3 or 4 times a day because I look at comments at the dashboard. But I think I'm around 5,200 subscribers.
Wow.
And yeah, and then on my gaming channel, I think I've got like 10,700. And but it's just numbers. I enjoy doing it. I think if you start a channel for the right reason, you'll succeed. If not, you'll get burned out. Because I've seen many of people, like I said, I've been doing it 4 years, come in that was friends and just get, burn out. And I understand we all got to take a break. I've took breaks before, but I've seen a lot of people just because things are a little low, you're always, because you're going to have roller coaster rides in the YouTube. It's just how it is. But if you started for the right reason, you'll last. But I'm enjoy it. I got a I got a saying. I might not want to say it the words on YouTube, but it's better than smoking certain substances than doing YouTube. It keeps me out of trouble. And like I said, I've met a lot of people, but that's kind of the gist of it, I guess, the long gist of why I started it. So,
Right. Wow. So I will give a shout out to James Hood and to my friend Destination Spooky. I always want to call you by your real name. Dude, you know that. But I want to give honor and respect to your show tonight. Both of you guys have been a part of this whole fiasco from the beginning. So I appreciate you both being here. So Ashes, I already told you, I gave you a heads up beforehand. I was going to ask you this one because this is the question of a lifetime. This is the $64 million question. Where did you get the name The Boom Boom Room?
well, some people might think it's an innuendo, but it's not. Maybe it is. I'm a big fan of the movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. When it's like set in the 1920s and they get falsely accused and get life in like a prison in Mississippi, like a prison camp, and they're I guess in jail or prison or whatever, and they always dream of getting out. And I think Eddie Murphy dreams of this place. It's a nightclub, like a juke joint or a jazz club called the Boom Boom Room that they go visit and have a good time dancing and stuff. And Eddie Murphy goes, that's my club, the Boom Boom Room. And I said, just right off top of my head, hindsight's 2020. The only reason I'd want to change it, I don't want to change it, and I won't, would be it's kind of hard to find on YouTube. You've got to type in at the Boom Boom Room 777.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Talking about life one night. Yep. And that's one of my favorite movies. And so that's basically how I got the name.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I gotta tell you, the search engines are relentless on some things. When I first started out on YouTube, I was using an old brand that I kind of resurrected, and people just weren't finding it. People would tell me all the time, dude, I'll have to hunt for your stuff. And so that's where Backwoods Signal came into play. But yeah, you know what? When you said Eddie Murphy, a light clicked. I knew what you were about to say right after that because I've seen the movie. I was like, dang, why did I not think? I had never thought about that. That was the connection there. So you alluded a little bit to us about your experiences with the paranormal. Obviously goes back a ways. I feel you on that. That's where, gosh, I was like 7, 8, 9 years old whenever I first started experiencing stuff myself. Tell us a little bit about where things started with you and how you got interested in the supernatural.
Well, such an early age, I had experience when I was 7 or 8 years old, and but through my life, little things, and I can get into it. I can, if you want me to, I'll tell you, tell about it. But I think the straw that broke the camel's back was in 2011 that I think I had a Class B Bigfoot sighting on some property that I lived, and I grew up in some woods, but I grew up in I'm in Arkansas now, but I grew up in Oklahoma, LaFleur County, which is not far at all from here. That's infamous. I did not know it was so much activity like it was until the last few years. I mean, people would tell me things, but I didn't know it was that much because, growing up, I believe Bigfoot was real, but I believe it was an undiscovered ape, which it still might be. I don't know, but I don't think it is now. But I always thought it was, of course, like anybody else to do with the northwest, California, Washington. But in 2011, I had a Sasquatch encounter, and I could tell about that first, or I can go back and tell you kind of what happened to me when I was younger. But when I was about 7 or 8 years old, we all still own the property. It's kind of in the family now, but I think in the 70s, my grandpa passed away before I was alive, but all my aunts and uncles, they moved to Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma, and bought some lots out in the country, put some mobile homes on. I guess they probably had campers when they first came there, but probably about 8 or 9 different lots, and then about 2 acres of woods. And these woods, just like straight gravel road and this gravel road. And most of us live on the right side, and then it's a curve. And in the L, they built a church when they first got there, I guess, to worship. And somebody ended up burning it down in the 90s. But where that church is a pad of concrete, and there's some woods right in there. And in these woods, you can walk. When we were kids, we would walk all the way down to the Arkansas River. It was about 2.5 miles, dead end, everything dead end. Then there's something called the Spiral Mounds. It's supposedly a 2,000-year-old burial ground, Native American, Caddo Indians. And said when it was thriving, it was the Washington, D.C. of the Native Americans. It was a big deal. And I've read a little bit of history lately, which I need to read more, of course, but a mining company came there in the early 1900s to start digging up things. When they started finding artifacts, they started selling them, giving them away, just straight disrespect. And of course, a bunch of people, it's documented, that had to do with the diggings died mysteriously. So it was a lot of bad juju there. But anyway, and a lot of the artifacts, I guess, went to museum in Oklahoma City and the big one in New York. I think it's in New York, but Smithsonian or whatever. But they said the Native Americans would walk from Canada, from Florida to Mexico to bring artifacts there. So it was a sacred site that went on. But a lot of strange stuff happened. I've had a lot of cousins, things happen around this area, old timers, which I'll get into a few of them. But when I was 7 or 8 years old, I was scared of the dark. I'm not going to lie. And I don't know what age I stopped, but a lot of times I would sleep on the floor beside my mom and dad in their bedroom. So one night I'd sleep on my stomach. I was sleeping on my stomach, and this is something that every day I've thought about. Every day, my whole life, 49 years I've been on this planet. And there's things that comes back to me, new things I remember, but mostly this is what I remember. I woke up and I felt something physically I felt like something was on my back, but my shirt was jerking me. I know this is weird sounding. And I knew it was something, a smaller size jerking me. And I remember I woke up, I don't know how long it went on for or how fast it was, but I know something jumped on my back and was jerking me, and I was on my stomach. I know I got up, I went to wake my mom up, could not wake her up. It seems like finally I woke her up, and she said, "Go back to sleep. It ain't nothing, bad dream." Typical thing, like in a movie or whatever. But I don't know when it was that night. It was sooner or later or what. I remember I went to go pee. You'd think wouldn't want to get up and go pee if something like that happened. But I know the bed was there, mom and dad's bed, the floor here. I remember I got up. The end of the mobile home was the bathroom, and it was this real small window. When you look out this window, you could see a chain link fence. We had a gate to the left. As soon as you go through the gate, a little trail that goes to the road, the gravel road that goes straight. But my grandma's had an RV. She always lived in a small RV just by herself. Had the little trail and a gate, and to the left's a storm shelter that my dad and my uncles built because Oklahoma's tornado alley. So when I looked through this window, and Daniel, I've tried to remember. Maybe I can go through hypnosis and maybe get more detail. But I remember looking, and there was something small. And all from far as details, I know that whatever it was running when I looked out the window, and it stopped, and it turned around to look at me. But I don't remember from waist up. I don't remember anything what it looked like. All I remember is like it either had fur, it was its body fur, or it was wearing something. Its legs were like a reddish, curly fur. Now, there's a lot of sightings in northeast Oklahoma of the pug wedgies or the little people. It could have been my whole life I thought it was something demonic, an imp. I thought it was some kind of demonic imp. Because later on I had kind of an encounter with some imps, but they were different. And I know it turned around to look at me, and then it just shot off like cartoonish. But I did not see its face or upper body. But what's weird is a night or two before that, I had an uncle that lived on the end of the road, probably 6 or 7 mobile homes down where the woods is, right there in his mobile home. He's passed away now. He was a Sunday school teacher. And he told my mom he would come down, drink coffee, and play cards. He told her that something came to him small and was screaming, was calling him daddy, And I know my mom was laughing about it. My mom was like this. She'd make jokes about anything. But I know as far as family wise, me, my uncle, my mom would see things, the three of us. Because I remember my mom told me one time she came in and my middle brother was out partying all night or something, and she was worried about him and walked in the room. She said there was 3 monkey looking imps, up in the ceiling, hanging down above my brother, She prayed them out. She would always see things spiritually and, run them out. But that's basically what, as far as I can remember back. But, I know it wasn't a dream, Daniel. I've thought about it. It was something that physically happened. Now, there was times in my life that I tried to forget about it. Like, it was just a dream. And then it always would circle back. No, that was real. It happened to you. But was it an imp? Maybe. I mean, most of the time I thought it was, but it could have been something cryptic. I mean, it had to get in there. I mean, it had to phase through a wall. But going down the rabbit hole that I've had, I've had people on the show that's had fairy encounters, weird, cryptic, pale. I mean, anything's possible. And, I grew up, my mom raised me in church, and I didn't really get really close to the Lord spiritually until about 11 years ago. But 6, 7 years ago, I went to a lot of spiritual attack and different things. Was in an old house, and I can tell that story. And look, I talk a lot. Just interrupt me when you want to, because I do talk a lot. But when you get me going, I don't stop. But later on from that time, like remembering things, get a drink. I'll go to 2011. What happened? Now, like I said, I'd watch Bigfoot shows in the early 2000. Stuff on Discovery. It always intrigued me that something would be out in the woods and that. But I got a divorce. It was in 2010. I got remarried like an idiot in 2011. And, but that kind of married pretty much the neighbor girl or whatever. So I bought a new mobile home, and where I grew up towards the highway on this road, around the curve, the same road, her mom and dad had a place, two places, and we moved her mobile home there, and her grandpa and grandma was on the corner. And then when I walked out of my mobile home, the new one, I could see my uncle's place, the one I'm talking about, and he's on the curve, about 50, 60 yards, the edge of these woods, no more than 60 yards, might be 40. But it was about 2:30 in the morning. I remember that because I'd get up like clockwork smoking cigarettes. I smoked back then. And it was a little bitty porch. I was out. I remember the moon was pretty bright. I was on the porch smoking. Well, I started hearing something, Daniel, just crashing through the woods. Now, these woods, if you walk in them, we'd play in them as kids, had a little bitty creek back there, but not very wide, maybe a 5-foot creek. But you could walk in these woods and, like I said, go all the way to the Arkansas River and go to these burial grounds, but some of it be wider, these woods. But you could go through there and not be seen easily.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the bottoms and everything. Well, I heard something crashing. I'm talking about crashing. And the first thought, I thought it was a side-by-side or somebody on a mule, because a lot of the teenagers would drive around, four-wheelers, even four-wheelers, racing four-wheelers,
Yeah.
Up and down the roads. I mean, it's the country. But I didn't hear no engine. That's what was weird. But I'm thinking when they come out of this clearing, I'm gonna be mad because her grandpa was basically on hospice. He was really, really sick. So I'm thinking I'm getting mad. I'm going to give it to them. They should know better to come through here. So I'm looking, and I don't know how long this encounter. It could have been 10 seconds. The whole encounter 5. I really couldn't tell you, but when I hear the crash, and I'm thinking there's no motor. I don't hear a motor, but it was so loud, it didn't sound like a side-by-side. It sounded like a Volkswagen Beetle, a small car coming through these woods.
Wow.
Well, I'm looking, Daniel, and I start seeing these trees part, shaking or part, and it's coming, pretty. It ain't coming super fast, but I can see these trees moving, and I'm thinking when it comes to this clearing, when it gets out here, it's going to be one of the teenagers, even though my mind, I'm not hearing the engine. So when it stops before it gets to the clearing, it roars. I'm seeing these trees move, and I don't see it come to the clearing. Maybe it did come. I doubt it came out into the clearing. When it roars, it vibrates my whole body, my guts, heart, lungs. And I've said this many a times. The only way I can explain it, I used to go to a lot of NASCAR races. I used to go Kansas City. I used to travel the Midwest a lot for my business I own. And I'd go to IndyCar races. I've been to funny, Top Fuel funny cars. That's the only thing I compare it to vibrating my whole body. And I remember it seemed like it roared for a minute, but you know, it might have been 2 seconds. But it was like a deep, guttural, but high pitch at the same time, you know. And I had the cigarette, and I'll never forget it. It was like a, you know, it was like a movie. I had the cigarette, and when it roared, I just stuck. I couldn't move. I remember I was like stoned, you know. And the thought that I had when it happened is this is demonic. I got it. I had the worstest fear. I've never had that fear ever since then, never before that. And I'll get into it. I think I've seen demons, you know, face to face, and I've never been. I wasn't afraid then. I was not. It was a fear that I cannot explain. I cannot put into words. You know. Was it one? Did I see it? No. Was it 100% a Sasquatch? No. Could have been a dog man, like you know. I know he's saying about manifesting inside homes. It could have been a dog man, but I know one thing. It was nothing I've never heard. Something was that big that could move that fast and crash through. You know, the thing had to be wide to be coming through there, making that much noise. But this is what's the weird part is. I remember turning around. It was a little small porch. It's one of the porches they give you when you buy a mobile home. I remember turning around. I remember opening the door, walking in, and I remember saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," you know. And I remember the couch over there. That's it. I don't remember anything else the rest of that night. It's like,
Wow.
like my mind just either my mortal mind erased it or done something to me. I do not understand what happened after that. I tried to tell my wife, which my wife, God bless her, was an idiot. I was an idiot, bigger idiot for marrying her, but you know, it was one of those things that I couldn't talk to her about. And I don't know if I've told people, but I just kind of I thought it was demonic. I thought I didn't come face to face with some kind of big demon because I've seen a few demons when I was living in that mobile home I dealt with, which I was you know, going through a spiritual battle bad there. It was a bad marriage and everything, but I knew it was something different that I've never come across, I've never heard. But hindsight's 2020. Now I'd probably do stuff different. But what was weird, I've not been in them woods my whole life, never seen anything, never heard. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. You know, I even hunted.
Right.
20 of us on 7,000 acres in Antlers, Oklahoma, southeast Oklahoma, which is close to Area X. And we never, you know, it was weird. There was some weird stuff went on there, but I wasn't looking for Bigfoot or Sasquatch, which that was 20 years ago. But I understand when people say I've been in the woods my whole life, never seen nothing, but there's something out there, man. There definitely, but that right there really threw me down. The things that I've seen, and I can get into it. You know, like I said, stop me if you want me to stop talking if you want. But little things that's happened. But around there, I had a cousin tell me when we were kids, my whole life, you know, I'm Gen X, you know, late 80s, early 90s as a kid. He would tell me a quarter of a mile from there, he told me that his mobile home, I remember when we were younger, was kind of high. They jacked it up high. Sometimes they do that with mobile homes. And I would look through the window and knock on it. We'd play Nintendo. My head would come up about right here. You know, I was always a little tall. And hello, everybody in chat if I don't. But he told me one night, because we'd go over there playing Nintendo, Dungeons and Dragons. We'd read a lot of Dragonlance novels, D&D, you know, we were little nerds. and I'm still a nerd. But he said one night, I don't know if he heard it, I don't know if he smelled it first or whatever. He leaned up in bed, he looked through the hallway. His door was like right here. When you look through the hallway, his mobile home, there was a window. It was towards his backyard. And he wasn't probably 300 yards from these woods, not the same woods, but woods like west of the woods. And he said it was solid black in the window, and he seen two red eyes, he told me. And he said, I smelled the worstest smell. And he was never like a Bigfoot guy, even growing up. We wouldn't talk about stuff like that, but he told me that happened. And he would have a lot of weird stuff happen to him too. He had probably stuff he shouldn't have messed with. You know what I mean? Like Ouija boards and stuff. But he told me he come out of his body one time, astro plane or whatever you want to call that. I don't know about it. Lost time, him and his sister, time lossage. He had a lot of stuff weird happen to him. Always weird, supernatural.
Yeah.
But then I've had other relatives that there was a little Catholic church out in the country, small one. All the kids would park, girlfriend, whatever, park there, drink some beers, smoke or whatever. And they had a cattle gate. And I had 3 or 4 of them tell me when we were kids that something come through the woods screaming, and they would leave. You know how one person will tell you something, you might say they're joking or they're lying, and you kind of look, are they the type to track record to lie? But looking back, hindsight, everything clicking that happened to me, I remember this one told me this. This one told me that. It starts adding up. But and another thing too, I've got a friend, she's 65-year-old lady. I've known her my whole life. There's a prominent where I live out in the country where I grew up. Go towards the mounds. It's called Fort Coffee. It's a prominent black community, back there, and growed up in the community. There's a lot of farmers, and I went to school with her brother. She lives over here now, about a mile from me in some apartments. She's 65 years old. I'll go over there when I go out, or I'll call her and she'll say, go get me some snuff, or, I want a big red. She don't like to drive. Known her for years. And her brother owns, or I worked with her brother before, but she got another brother that's a pastor here in town. Well, I was over there about 6 months ago with this conversation, because we never talk about cryptics, nothing supernatural ever. It's always either about church or family. So I go over there. Well, I start talking about podcasts. She said, and now here's what's weird. She grew up probably not even quarter mile from these burial grounds in this community in the bottoms by the river. And she said, I had something weird happen to me. Now, we don't even talking about no dog man or nothing, just Bigfoot at this time. I was 15 years old. He had like a little a juke joint tavern in the country, a dangerous place, really, what it was. Bootleggers. Everybody, I'd go through there, teenagers. But she said that when she was 15, her cousin snuck out to go down there to go to the dance. They called it old timers. So she said she was coming back home, didn't want to get caught, and she heard growling. She turned around, Daniel. She said, I seen the biggest wolf I ever seen in my life. I said, what? Her name's Miss Pam. What do you mean, Miss Pam? Yeah, it had red eyes. It was growling. And had what was weird. Now, I've never even talked to her about a dog, man. She don't even know about a dog, man. It had a big mane, and it was big on all fours. Growling. It scared me to death. We took off running, and it started chasing us. She said she wasn't far from home. When she got on the porch, turned around, it was gone. And then later on, lately, I asked her, my mind's really slow. I said, Miss Pam, I said, is there a graveyard around where y'all was? Yeah, there's a graveyard right there, she said.
Mm.
No graveyard. Now, was it a dog, man? I don't know, but she, very smart woman, sharp for her age. Uh, there's no reason for her to make this up, you know, because I'm not laying stuff out for her to take and then twist it. She just told me straight up. But, you know, there's no wolves around eastern Oklahoma, coyotes, you know. Could it
Mm.
have been a big mastiff or pit bull? Maybe, but, well, a mane, you know, around its neck.
Right.
But now here's one right here that I've only heard one other time in Kentucky close to it. She said she was 8 or 9 years old, whatever. Her mom got on to her for acting up. And she said it was at nighttime, but it wasn't cold or hot. She was just being, you know, giving her a time out, made her get outside, you know, old
Mm.
school. So she goes outside, she knows it was dark, and this house that she lived in, she told me they ended up tearing it down because she would see her aunt all the time, a ghost of her aunt dressed, combing her hair in the mirror. I mean, all kind of ghosts you'd see in this house, but they end up tearing it down. But she goes outside pouting, you know, as kids do. There's a big propane tank, you know, the big long ones, you know. She get the ones you used to ride when you like a horse when you were a kid. So she said she gets up on this propane tank and she's leaned back. She got her arms crossed and she's leaned back. And now she's telling me all this. Where I mean, I am like I said, I'm not feeding her nothing. I just said Bigfoot, and she starts saying I've had some weird stuff happen to me. She said she hears something and she leans up, Daniel, and when she's looking, she sees three scarecrow creatures coming at
Mm.
her. You know, and I said, "What?" You know, I said, "Was it somebody dressed? Was it Halloween?" No, these were evil scarecrow creatures coming at me. And
Mm.
she said, "All I can explain to you how they look. One was like the daddy, one was like the mama, and one was smaller, like a child, was like you know, a family." And
Mm.
but I said I tried to get specific information, but she just said all I could tell you is they were scarecrows,
Mm.
just down to everything, straw, hats, and they were coming towards me. Now, you know, of course, my mind, I want to know was they walking, floating, but she said all I know is they was coming towards me. Were they close? They weren't real close, but they weren't far away. She did say that, but she took off screaming,
Mm.
and the door of the house wasn't that far, you know. And she started beating on it, and finally her mom opened up, turned around, there was gone. They never seen them again. You know, she never told me she seen them again or what. But but you know, she never said no more about it. Uh but those was three things that happened to her. And she lived there her most of her life, you know, down by the Native American burial ground. But I had other people tell me they seen Bigfoot down there. I just would when they people would tell me, you know, in the past I wouldn't pay attention to anything. Now, you know, I'm just I'm wanting to hear every detail.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that when you get into talking about some of the stories and so forth, I think a lot of times what we don't really, because we're literally a just out of water in the stirred world anymore. We want everything quick and fast.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's those details that we graze past that are the nuggets, the important stuff And so yeah, when somebody's telling a story now, and they're talking about things like, I look for them saying things that I've never heard before, like the scarecrow story. Now that is not is something that I've heard of. I have not
Mhm.
heard direct stories of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I hear stuff like that, like my ears are like a friggin' dog. They perk up real quick.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, so I think you're onto something there when you talk about wanting to know every little detail. I think that's very key, because like I said, we miss a lot of things. I'm going back now and rereading some stuff and refreshing some of my research that I've done. I was going back over Randy Bauer's story today, uh, Sasquatch Central, the book, and I couldn't believe, Ashes, how much detail I missed the first time around, because I was trying to read the book in kind of a hurry because I was reading it ahead of an interview with him. And and I got some of the stuff, and it was in my brain, and we had a good interview from all of that. But going back over it now, though, I was up like 12 hours working on that between last night and today. Um, just kind of adding details in to my research that I missed. So yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this. I really want it because you hit on something with the scarecrow thing. What do you think that was? Because I've heard these tales before from old folks in Appalachia about the scarecrows. Like, just but no actual stories, just people like, you know, telling kids stuff to scare them, I guess, or whatever. So what do you think that is?
I think it was something to do with the burial grounds.
Mhm.
A lot of disrespect has been, you know, done, that sacred site. And it's not, they're not, she's not the only one that things happen. But I really do think but her house, she would tell me a lot of paranormal stuff would happen in the house too. And, even though that she might live a quarter of a mile from there, that ground she might be on might be sacred too. Might have been part of that, but it's not documented, even though it's a quarter of a mile away or however how far.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
that could be something to do with it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get her on the show to talk. I don't know how good she'll be, of a person to talk. It might be a 5 minute conversation, but it's for her just to tell me about it out of the blue just kind of blew my mind. Um, no build up or leading to it or leading her on. It was totally weird, but and it could have been her just attracting it. But she would say that her brother, all of them would see, ghosts in the house, and her aunt. It just might have been something to do with that land they were on.
Mm.
Could have been. It might have been part of the tribe or something. You never know. I know on our land that my cousins was telling me when they were kids, they're older than me, that they'd find cannonballs, all kind of, arrowheads, everything. And we were probably 2.5 miles, three at the most from those burial grounds, because out in the country down that dead end road. Um, I've had one old timer. He passed away. I remember when I was a teenager, he'd say, "See this all this land around here?" And when he'd talk about something, you'd always listen. You know, he's one of those people that any kind of conversation you'd have, your ears would perk up. He said, "See all this land, son? It's cursed." He'd tell me, and he just wouldn't say no more. He said, "All this land's cursed." And was he just being, sarcastic? Something maybe, but Oklahoma, the Trail of Tears. You have the recognized five civilized tribes of Oklahoma. There's a lot of bad stuff that's happened, but in Oklahoma, when it was a territory, right here where I'm at, Fort Smith, they started the Marshals, the Marshals right here, U.S. Marshals. They had Judge Parker, they call him the hanging judge. And I want to do some videos. There's the gallows up, but it ain't the original gallows. He hung so many men, and even women, 167, he was hanging them left and right. He was being harsh because Oklahoma, and that was right over the line here. It was a lot of outlaws. All the outlaws would go over here. Jesse James, the Daltons. I mean, Oklahoma was, just a territory. So there was a lot of blood spilled, a lot of, negative energy, all through that Western time. So that's got a lot to do with a lot of things, definitely. I don't know how long you're going to go for. I've got another little story I can tell you that happened about 6 years ago. It was, I can tell that. Where I live at now, Fort Smith. I know some people say don't tell where you live. I don't care what people are going to do. But I was with my ex-girlfriend. I've been living here 4 years in February with my son. We got a place together. But before that, I lived out in the country for a year on 2.5 acres that me and my ex-girlfriend bought. But just before that, which was been about 6 years ago, we had an old house here on the rough side of town. And she had the house where I got with her, but we ended up selling it, which was a weird story in itself. I was praying to God one day and said, "Man, I want to sell this house, God, move out of town, go out in the country." And 3 days later, God knocks on the door and said, "I want to buy your house," out of the blue, which you knew that was God. And, but so we're living in this old house, a lot of weird stuff happened in it, but she had 3 nephews and a niece. Well, a niece and the 2 nephews were triplets. And then there was a boy that was older. They was in Wisconsin, and their stepdad wasn't treating them too good. So I said, let them come down. They can stay with us. It was just me and her, and her brother would come into town every once in a while, somewhere to stay. So they come down. I don't know how long they was there for. They got enrolled in school. Well, one day we're in the living room, just me and her. I don't know where all the kids were, but they had three bedrooms. Well, the first bedroom in the living room right here, and you walk to the hallway, there's the kitchen and the 2 bedrooms. Our bedroom was in the far of the house, wasn't a big house. And our bedroom was it was a garage turned into a bedroom. And whoever built it, man, I don't know what they was doing. Because our bathroom, it didn't even have a door. It was about this wide. We just had like a curtain up. Nobody could go back there but me and her. But anyway, her niece runs out. It's me and her watching TV. Her niece runs out, mad, out of the bedroom and said, "Aunt, why did you throw this lighter at me?" And she's got this lighter in her hand. "Why did you throw this lighter at me?" We looked at each other, kind of got giggling, Well, I didn't throw no lighter at you. Yes, you did. We thought you was joking, and then we seen she was serious. You come in there, you throw this lighter, it hit me in the head, And I seen you using the doorway, and then you ran out. You
Mm.
know, we
Wow.
looked at each other. We thought she was joking. We didn't pay no attention to it. Then I don't know how far it was after this. Me and her's in the living room again watching TV. We're by ourselves in the house. Think the kids were at school. Well, in our bathroom, in the far end of the house, I knew it was the toilet lid slam, right?
Mm.
And she goes, "Go see what that was." I said, "I know what it was, the toilet lid. Anybody can tell you that." Well, I walked back there, and it was the toilet lid was down. So I just pick it up. So that's gravity, right? I've seen them happen before. I've seen it happen before. It happens again, but this time it slams 2 times.
Mm.
I hear it go boom, boom. And I walked back there and the toilet lid was down. So, okay, that's weird. Her nephew, one of the triplets, come to us, Daniel, and says, "There's a woman whispering in my ear to tell me to do bad things." And we said, "What?" Now, this kid, he's a smart kid, 14 years old, nothing wrong with him mentally, just at all. And we look at, we think he's joking, of course. Then we see he's serious. I said, "What is she?" He never told us what she wanted him to do, but he said, "She's whispering in my ear, and she looks like you, Aunt. It looks like you."
Mm.
And I knew then. I said, "It's something demonic, right?" Well, I said, "Man, that's something demonic. You got to pray it off. This and this and that." And I started thinking about it. I said, "Man, he done something." Well, it's springtime. He goes working with his dad for spring break out of town. That night, he's going to come home. Him and his dad and his other brothers.
Mm.
I'm by myself down in our bedroom, and like I said, the bathroom's real small bathroom. Got a sink, a toilet, small shower. I'm peeing in there, and when I'm peeing, like I said, it's an opening about not far at all, and then it's like a thin curtain down. When I'm peeing, Daniel, all of a sudden, this demon woman appears. My percular vision, whatever you want to call it, I see this woman standing about that far from the curtain.
Mm.
I turned. I had enough time to look at her face and look down, and she vanished. And she looked basically did kind of look like their aunt, my girlfriend at the time, like a dirty white looking dress. I didn't see no shoes, jet black, dirty hair,
Mm.
long hair, and all I could say, kind of what you look like, was the Grudge.
Mm.
Had that pale face. I didn't see the eyes. Her head was down like this.
Mm.
And from what I remember, her skin was just like that gray, ashy looking. And I said, "What do you?" It didn't scare me. I said, "What do you want?" And it told me, not audibly, in my mind, whatever you want to say, telepathy or mind speak, whatever. It says, "I'm waiting on," and it said his name, the boy. And I said, "No, you ain't." You know, and I started rebuking it in the name of Jesus. I started going through the house. I rebuked it out of there. It was gone. I knew it was gone. Well, he got back that night. I set him down. But before he got back, I got praying. I
Mm.
said, "Lord, want to praying about it and stuff." And God just told me, said that you can run it out. It will come back. He's got to denounce it. That's what God told me.
Mm.
So I set him down that night. I said, "Let me ask you something. What did you do to get this thing coming around?" "I didn't do nothing." I said, "Look, you're not gonna get in trouble. It stuff's going on. What did you do?" I already knew he done. I already knew what he done.
Mm.
Finally, he admitted it. He said, "I played with the Ouija board, me and my girlfriend."
Mm.
And I said, "Look, you got to denounce this." So I led him through a prayer. I said, you got, and it never did come back, Daniel. But I had other weird stuff happen. Just real quick, I could tell this. One night I don't know if this was after this or that. I was laying on the bed, half asleep. I woke up and these had these stairs that went into the kitchen. I'm on the left side of the bed. I see these jet black. Only details I seen was their hands. It was jet black outline of a typical alien.
Mm.
And there were three of them. Like one was on the stairs, one was on the middle stairs, and all I remember is like their hands had these like round bulbs or something. Now this is just jet black shadow, but it was, I seen the whole outline, and their hands was going like this, all three of them, and I rebuked them. I started praying, and then they went away. But that's basically, I mean, the most interesting things that happened in that house. But they ended up buying it, tearing it down. Now, it could have been something to do with the house, but I think it had to do with the people mostly in there, what was going on, but thank God I haven't seen anything in a while, or really there's times that periodically I'll feel something evil and I'll just rebuke it and pray it out or whatever tries to come around. But, I try not to throw my beliefs on anybody unless the Holy Spirit, wants me to tell somebody witness. But, God's brought me a lot of places. I'm sober. I'm not perfect. Clean and sober, almost 11 years. I got a testimony. I was in real bad shape, and God brought me out of that. But I know there's nothing stronger than the name of Jesus, and his son, God, Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. But I don't really, all these things that happened to me, I thought that a lot of everybody experienced them, which is a lot of people's experiencing. And YouTube does really, is good that people can tell their stories. And but that's the main thing about my channel. I just enjoy listening to people, what's happened to them. It's interesting, and it's a safe place to come on there. If you just want to get it off your chest. I enjoy a good conversation, comparing more stories.
Right. It's definitely, it is a good thing. I mean, it's a good medium. Anyway, so Michigan Sandman asked a question that I really want to touch on.
Okay.
Because I know one of the darker stories that I heard about unknown animal attacks actually happened out your way. A young boy out that way was killed a while back by one, and that story was in an interview with Mike McKee when he was talking about dogman attacks and unknown animals attacks. So Michigan Sandman asked, does anybody think cryptids can be an NHI shapeshifters? Wow. So I have a thought on that, but I want to hear what you think about it first.
Well, what does the NHI mean? I'm a little slow.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to have to look that part up right quick because it's been a minute.
Well, not far from here, it was on the news in Arkansas that we had 2 bear attacks. A man that was on his tractor supposedly got a picture before the bear deleted him. And then they supposedly got that bear and killed that bear. But the other bear, there was 2, supposedly deleted somebody else, and they never caught that bear. And that's just suspicious, We don't have no bear attacks like that. And it was over in the Ozarks, about maybe 80, 90, 100 miles from here. But, you know, Josh, Josh Smith from Mysteries Unknown, probably, I don't know. I don't know how far he lives, maybe an hour from here. He was doing a story on shapeshifters. I mean, skinwalkers on a guy's land. And, and when he got done, the guy went to open the gate up and he looked over and there's a dog man standing, it pretty well face to face. So I think that when you say anybody says skinwalkers and shapeshifters, I think that that's kind of about what they are, dog man. That's my opinion, but who knows? I mean, I'm no expert. I'm trying to learn every day like anybody else. But you go to the angels, in the Bible, they're the master of shape shifting.
Yeah.
They can, and I know, not trying to get, I know people about demons are looking for a body to inhabit. A lot of people think that demons are the offspring of the Nephilim, trying to, maybe they are. There are two different things in the fallen angels and then, those. But I think that there's a lot of demonic things that can shapeshift. And then there's probably ones that can't. They're looking for hosts. I don't know. That's just my opinion on things. I really don't know. But what did you figure out what NHI means?
Yeah, I kind of feel like a little bit NHI right now, to be honest with you. Non-human intelligence. I don't know why I could not remember that. But
my brain,
dude, I've been like reading a lot today, and so yeah, non-human intelligence. I can't believe I was like, what the heck? I should have known that. Honestly, I gotta tell you, my personal opinion is I don't doubt anything anymore. Okay, I've been doing this thing, for years, many years. I was like 6, 7, 8 years old when I first started having experiences, and that prompted me to read a lot back then. Anything I could, I literally, back when I was a kid, they would like they would have just like little weekly or monthly. I think it was once a month. They would maybe it was once a week. It seemed like it was pretty often. They would have this little, 6 or 7 page little booklet they would pass out to all of us, and we could order books from it. And there was always some book about, back then it was like, I remember when the Amityville Horror was first a big thing. That was one of the books I ordered because it was brand new and it was hot off the presses, and I really wanted to know about that story. So I ordered that book. I was always ordering books about anything like the supernatural that you could get. I wanted to know about it, and then I would read stuff in the Bible and I'd be like, well, that's odd, and I would go back and I'd research that and so forth. So early on, I started reading, like anytime there was something on TV, I would search out like stuff on Bigfoot and UFOs and Leonard Nimoy and all those guys back then that had, shows about stuff like that. I'd watch all that stuff. So I was before I even knew what research was, I was researching, and then years later, of course, when I was in my early teens, 20s, I started getting into actually investigation of different things. By the time I was 25 or so, I think I was already involved in helping some people. Some of the folks actually were connected with Bill Cooper, the author of Behold the Pale Horse. I was helping them with some stuff in their research early on, and learned quite a bit about how to go about, doing some things, and we were experimenting with different stuff and so forth. But anyway, with all that said, I don't doubt that there are some cryptids that probably are shapeshifters. Maybe all of them. I don't know. I don't. And let me tell you this: anybody, I can tell you now. Like I said, I've been doing this for a few years now, and anybody who says that they're a researcher, an investigator, a podcaster, who claim that they have all the answers and that they prove this or prove that, be leery, guys, and I'll tell you why. Because all this time, my opinion on things have changed back and forth several times. And I tell people to this day, is like, if the Lord takes me tomorrow, I still don't know crap about anything. Because all this research, all this knowledge, it's helpful, but we don't have answers.
Mm-hmm.
We have the things that we have answers about, are not even, I mean, they're, when you talk about the supernatural, the only thing that I have an answer about in the supernatural world is the glorification, the sanctification, the Christhood of Jesus, the things that we're taught in the Bible about the Lord. And that is a supernatural experience. I mean, when God comes down incarnate, that's about as supernatural as you get. Okay. That's kind of powerful. So those are that's what we know. That's what I know. That's the only thing I know for sure. All this other stuff, like, people throw up all these pictures about what angels look like and all that. And technically we do have some descriptions in the Bible of cherubim and seraphim and these things, and they are quite interesting looking according to the verbiage used and the descriptions used. But we don't know.
No.
So when somebody comes to you, or somebody gets online and says, I have definitive proof that this is true, the first thing you need to do is ask them for all of the references to their research so you can go back and check it. Because if they have the references and the references point to what they're saying, then maybe for this moment in our weak minds, this is the truth. But don't take it for granted. It's like when people tell me stories, I've got to the point, Ashes, where now when somebody comes to me and says, I got a story to tell you, I literally put it in what I call tier 4, which is folklore, until they have some concrete proof. You show me a video, you show me some photographs, you give me some physical evidence of your story, and then we'll push it up to a higher tier. But until I have concrete evidence of something, I always keep it at tier 4, which is folklore. And then as as the evidence progresses, it moves up to a tier one eventually, hopefully, you know. But yeah, dude, you have so many, like, just the area that you grew up at is amazing, and then, I mean, Arkansas is not exactly
No.
untouched. It's got some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like Arkansas is kind of one of those places that's kind of the unsung hero in a way, because you know you hear a lot on YouTube about Tennessee, so a little bit about North Alabama. You hear a lot about Michigan, West
Mhm.
Virginia. You hear Bigfoot, Oregon, Washington, all that. But people don't understand, like right there in the heartland, Arkansas, Oklahoma, you know, even all the way up into Montana. Um, I haven't zoned that yet in the map, but I know that it's there, and you guys got a story to tell, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing that's amazing to me, and this is why I have tier four, which is folklore, is even if there is no evidence, like hardcore, you can knock on the door and hear it, evidence, the consistency in what people say sometimes, I believe, can be considered evidence after a while. Because when you compile enough of stories, and you've got enough of people over a period of time telling you some of the same details, some of the same experiences, and different perspectives, and you start aligning all of these stories together, you find that there is truth in what they're saying. It's not, these people can't be making it up.
No.
Sure, they can be hearing stories online and say, that sounds kind of, maybe that's what I actually saw, or whatever. I mean, there's always ways the mind works with us on, when we hear stuff. But I believe a lot of times, especially from the older folks, because they don't spend a lot of time, you know, on their phones like we do. You know, older folks will sit there and say, when I was a kid, da 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 da, and and you start hearing this, and you go, that sounds really similar to another story I heard. And then you got people like you that come on, you say stuff, and I'm like, this sounds really similar to something I heard before. And then, that's when we start taking notice. And when things, and people automatically assume folklore is a negative thing, that it means that you don't believe it. That's not necessarily my definition of folklore. Folklore may to me, it feels like, is more, this is a culturally uh, experienced thing, or a regional experience thing, or a thing that people continue to experience over the period of years. We don't have hardcore evidence yet, but we do have the stories, and we do have the witnesses, and people will say eyewitness testimony is not that great. But when you have the same story generation after generation after generation, town after town, state after state, country after country, it becomes a universal thing. It becomes something that the folklore means that somewhere along the line, there's a piece of truth there. Because even in the old wives' tales, there's a piece of truth. And so the shape shifting thing, I really think when it comes down to it, I think it's very possible. I think it's probable. Um, I would not discard it as something made up or something like that. It would be interesting to see how many people, because I know we've had several reports over the years of orbs, and then all of a sudden you see Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever. And so it's possible. It's very possible, I think. I tell you what, I want to. I would love to continue to go on for a while because you got a lot of stuff to talk about, dude. It's all good stuff too. But I know we're heading into almost an hour and a half. We're an hour and 20 in right now, and I want to get us both off of here so we can enjoy our Saturday night. I know I've got to. I've got so much to do before I leave out tomorrow morning to go to East Tennessee. I work over there part of the year, and we got a project over there in Farragut right now. But anyway, I really appreciate you, Ashes. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your friendship that has developed over the time. And the Boom Boom Room, you guys go check him out. He's got some really great stuff. Dropping shows left and right. I know you record stuff. Do you ever do lives?
Yeah, I do lives. I started doing them probably a month ago. I do lives every Monday at 7 p.m. Central.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I drop interviews pre-recorded every Friday at 7 p.m. Central. And then I do folklore, but my buddy from California, we like to release them every Saturday or Sunday, but he's been so busy. It was like we're putting them maybe one out every 2 weeks. And it's called Whispers Around the Campfire. It's folklore stories we tell for just ones that you tell around the campfire. And we're on like episode 5, but regular schedule, lives every Monday, 7 p.m. Central. And then, like I said, drop the interviews every Friday at 7 p.m. Central. So, but I appreciate you having me on, Daniel, and I appreciate your friendship. I've known you since I've probably first started watching you, and I look forward to seeing more that, your channel growing, and, your investigations and stuff on your channel. I look forward to it in the future. But I understand, people got to take breaks and, study and stuff like that. I've took them before and stuff, but yeah. But it was an honor that you asked me to come on. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I know, and when you asked me on your show, I was like, this is a good opportunity to be able to return the favor and get you on here, because I know I've watched your stuff before. I've heard some of your encounters and so forth a little bit here and there. I was like, this is impactful. It's very important. So thank you again. I gotta tell you, like, guys, as far as, especially if you're watching this after the show, as far as future endeavors, like I said, right now I'm gonna focus a lot on my research. I'm going back and doing refreshers on some things, and kind of expanding research a little bit as well as I go. I've got Zettelkasten set up now to be able to go and keep organized notes and bibliographies and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm hitting it hard right now. So you will be hearing some from me along the way, here and there. I'm not going to completely give it up. I got to tell you, I'm in a strong agreement with my friend Austin Lawrence right now, though. Y'all, we got to do better in this paranormal community, because you're losing some good folks lately, are stepping away. I'm hearing it more and more. I just ran across another one on TikTok tonight that he's not stepping away. He wants to do something good. But he's creating a network where guys like me, they're just kind of fed up right now. And the numbers are growing. As many people are out there, this entertainment purposes only, and paracelebs and all that kind of stuff. And I ain't trying to. Yeah, I am. I'm actually just going to vocally bash right now for a second. That garbage, that was never a thing until the internet came around. So remember that. Remember, before the internet, yeah, we had Ed and Lorraine, and they were kind of our para-celebrities, but they earned their thing differently. It wasn't through a podcast. It wasn't through, they did footwork. They did a lot of hard footwork. And I know a lot of people like bash the Warrens, but let me tell you and hear this. If it was not for Ed and Lorraine, the paranormal would not have been where it is now. I'm convinced of that. So let that sink in to y'all's thick skulls when you start bashing them. And the last thing I'm going to say about all that is, again, we got to do better. You got people that have been around for a lot of years that are walking away. Austin Lawrence has been part of this community for years. He has walked away. I am closing the door, at least for a while, yet to be determined. I know other people are, like I said, I'm hearing it every day now. Another person leaving the paranormal community, leaving the cryptid community, turning away from MUFON, which isn't a bad thing, but do better. Anyway, I love you guys. Ashes, thank you again.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. And you guys, keep your eyes open, your ears open, and listen for the signal.